Lawyers for Donald Trump rested their case today without calling him to testify in the first criminal trial of a former president. And after a defense witness got into a heated back and forth with one of the prosecutors, Trump had said before the trial he would absolutely testify. He went on to say, "I'm testifying. I tell the truth. I mean, all I can do is tell the truth. And the truth is that there is no case." Now, he said this on April 12th, though he had since softened his stance. And his lawyer, Alina Habba, who represented Trump in his civil trials, told Fox News on Monday that Trump wants to testify. He's absolutely ready to tell the truth. Well, today, Trump's team rested without Trump testifying or telling the truth. And the United States found itself at odds with some key allies today after President Joe Biden denounced the chief prosecutor of the world's top war crimes court for seeking arrest warrants for Israeli and Hamas leaders. Breaking with Biden, France and Belgium were among a number of countries to defend the independence of the International Criminal Court after prosecutor Karim Khan accused Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and the Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar, as well as others, of alleged war crimes. And allies of former President Trump pled not guilty today in Arizona on charges related to their involvement in a plan to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election. The 11 people arraigned today include former Trump lawyer Rudy Giuliani and so-called fake electors who signed documents claiming to be Arizona's Electoral College electors, even though now President Joe Biden narrowly carried the state and Arizona certified his victory. 4 states are holding primaries today, while California voters will select a replacement for former Speaker Kevin McCarthy, giving Republicans a little more breathing room in the House. With 2 Republicans competing in a special election in California's 20th district, the GOP is sure to add a new member to its slim House majority. And voters in Georgia, Oregon, Kentucky, and Idaho head to the polls today for their primaries. Now, all of the action is focused on House races, which will set up key battlegrounds and decide likely future lawmakers in less competitive open seats. We're also watching the primary between Georgia's District Attorney, Fani Willis, who has a Democrat running against her to face the Republican candidate in November. And former President Trump signaled during a new interview that he's open to some restrictions on birth control, saying that he will soon be releasing a policy on that issue. Now, he said this in an interview that aired today with a reporter from KDKA in Pittsburgh. He was asked if he supports any restrictions on a person's right to contraception. And a group founded by a prominent anti-affirmative action activist on Monday sued Southwest Airlines, alleging that a 2-decade-old program that awards free round-trip flights to Hispanic undergraduate and graduate students is racially discriminatory. Well, Edward Blooms from American Alliance for Equal Rights filed this lawsuit in federal court in Dallas, and he's alleging that Southwest's program violated federal civil rights laws by excluding non-Hispanic students from eligibility for free tickets. And in a place where a history of hate and unlikely fight against GOP extremism is taking root. Now, this is North Idaho. North Idaho has been the site of historic hate crimes, but a renegade Republican group is seeking to root out of its own party those that they believe are on the far right. And their fight will be tested today in Idaho's primary. Now, in this ruby red state, the pushback is being led from within the party. A group of disaffected, self-described traditional Republicans have spent the past 2 years planning to wrest back control from leaders who they accuse of steering the local GOP towards extremism. Now, a charge the officials vehemently deny. A crucial measure of the challengers' efforts will be tonight in terms of who wins the Idaho primary. And Louisiana lawmakers today approved a bill that would add 2 medications commonly used to induce an abortion to the state's list of controlled dangerous substances, making possession of the drugs without a valid prescription a crime punishable by a fine, jail time, or both. This is the news of the day, and this is Areva Martin in Real Time, and I'm your host, Areva Martin. This is your one-stop destination for today's trending news, expert analysis, and my unfiltered opinions. In this hour, I'm joined by two brilliant contributors, Rashad Frazier Gaines, who is the founder of Black Progressives, and Fatima Gilliam. She is the author of Race Rules, What Your Black Friend Won't Tell You. She's also a Columbia-trained attorney. And in hour two, you know what we do. That's the hour where we go deep, where we dig behind the headlines and bring you those stories that people are talking about. Well, social media was set to flames Friday afternoon when CNN released the disturbing video, which shows P. Diddy Sean Combs chasing and brutally assaulting Cassie, who was born Cassandra Ventura, in 2016. In the clip, the I'll Be Miss You rapper ran out of a hotel room only wearing a towel around his waist to chase after Cassie, who at the time was 37 years old, as she tried to get on an elevator to escape. When Combs reached Cassie, he grabbed her violently by the back of her neck and threw her to the floor. And as she lay on the floor motionless, we're not even sure if she's unconscious or what by the video, Diddy starts to kick Cassie, not once, but twice, before dragging her by her sweatshirt down the hall. This is all taking place at an Intercontinental Hotel in Los Angeles. There's allegations that Diddy paid the hotel security up to $50,000 to not release this video. In a statement by Cassie's lawyer, he said the gut-wrenching video has only further confirmed the disturbing and predatory behavior of Combs. Now, you'll remember last November, Cassie filed a bombshell lawsuit against Combs, accusing him of physically abusing her, including there were details about what we witnessed on that video in her lawsuit. She also accused him of raping and sexually assaulting her throughout their 10-year relationship. That lawsuit was settled in less than 24 hours. So in hour two, I have a domestic violence specialist, expert, and a psychologist along with Sharon Reed, because Black women, the three of us, are going in on Diddy because that video is so incredibly disturbing. So many folks, I talked about this on CNN last Friday when the video was released, sent me DMs and messages asking me how come Diddy wasn't under a jail, given what we witnessed on that video. So we're going to talk about some of the legal issues involved in what we witnessed on that video, as well as, what are some of the ways that predators like Diddy cause women to endure and suffer through the kind of violence that we witnessed and that Cassie told us was the hallmark of their relationship for 10 years. So if you know someone who has been in an abusive relationship, or someone that is a predator or an abuser, make sure they check out hour two of the show today, because we're going to be providing some good information and resources that can help people who are in crisis. But before I bring on my guest, I want to talk about my New York Times feature today. You may have seen it. If not, go to New York Times online and check it out. I want to give a big shout out to an African-American reporter extraordinaire. Her name is Audra Birch. She covered the Elijah McClain case, and she came out to Palm Springs almost 9 months ago or so and spent 3 days in the desert with me and the clients that I represent in a reparative justice case in Palm Springs related to the city's burning out and demolishing of a vibrant Black and Brown community in the 1950s and 60s. She spent time visiting the site, getting to know my clients, taking photographs. And today she did a feature and helped us elevate the story of Palm Springs and Section 14, which is the name of the community where my clients lived, helped us elevate a story that has been buried almost for 60 years in the local news in the Palm Springs community. And I've been working with hundreds, almost 1,000 clients in Palm Springs for over 2 years to elevate this story, to cause people throughout the state of California and throughout the nation to have a better understanding about the history of racial atrocities and how it wasn't just happening in the South. When you think about communities being burned out, of course, we hear a lot about Tulsa, Oklahoma and Black Wall Street, but there were literally communities right here in California, i.e. Section 14 of Palm Springs, where fire were set to literally drive Black and brown people out of their neighborhoods. And this community accepted for years that somehow they had done something wrong, that somehow by accepting the racially restrictive covenants that governed Palm Springs in the 50s and 60s and the financial covenants that prevented Blacks from getting loans and buying houses, that somehow Black folks and brown folks were inferior, because that's the message we know, the Jim Crowism and so many of the systemic racially motivated laws that have been the hallmark of this country. That's the message that is sent, that Black folks, you're not entitled. You can't live where white people live. You can't shop where they shop. You can't work where they work. You can't own homes in the way that they do. And unfortunately, that kind of racial trauma, those messages of inferiority become ingrained and entrenched and cause people to believe they're not worthy. And that was true of many of my clients. And several years ago, though, they found their voices and they realized that those messages were never true and were definitely not true today. And they started fighting, and they stood up, and they said to the city, we demand to be heard, we demand an apology, and we demand to be made whole. And about 2 years ago, the city of Palm Springs did issue an apology. But for the last 2 years, they've been fighting with everything they have to deny any kind of redress or remedies for my clients. And about a month ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, after our hard-fought battles in the desert, the city finally put an offer on the table that included some cash, as well as some other significant things like remembrance days and monuments. The cash isn't enough because it doesn't in any way match the trauma and the losses that my clients suffered. But it was a good first step. And we are encouraged now by this New York Times article and how it continues to elevate the story. We're still sitting down with the city, negotiating, hoping, particularly since Juneteenth is coming up, that maybe by Juneteenth, they will decide to be on the right side of justice, on the right side of history, and resolve my clients' claims without protracted litigation. So again, big shout out to the New York Times, big shout out to Audra Birch for lifting up this story. I'm going to keep you posted. Follow me on all social platforms, Instagram, Facebook, because I've been posting regularly updates. And if you're in California, join us, because we activate a lot in Palm Springs. We'll be down there on Juneteenth. Again, calling for justice, calling for action, calling for redress for hundreds of Black and brown survivors of Palm Springs Section 14. When we come forward, more of today's breaking and trending news right here on KBLA Talk 1580. Stay with us.
Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hi, it's Tavis Smiley. First, thank you for your support of KBLA Talk 1580. We deeply appreciate you. So, I get asked all the time, Tavis, when are you going to bring back that State of the Black Union Symposium you used to do? You know, the one where you had all those Black intellectuals on stage every year and everybody watched all day live on C-SPAN? Yeah, I know the one.
Let's bring them back.
Well, I am pleased to tell you that if you go to KBLA1580.com right now, you can sign up to be in the audience here in Los Angeles when we go back live on C-SPAN with a stage full of Black thinkers and influencers for a historic conversation. America has never seen a stage full of Black folk talking about the urgency of now. Climate justice, climate equity, climate resilience. It's going down Tuesday, June 18th, 4 to 7 p.m. at the California Science Center in Exposition Park. Admission is free, but you must register at KBLA1580.com. Once we reach capacity, you'll have to watch us on C-SPAN. But if you want to be in the room when we go live from Los Angeles, Tuesday, June 18th, head to KBLA1580.com right now to reserve your seat. caring about the climate, caring about the community. With KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
I believe up there. Hey!
What's that sound? That's the sound of Downy Unstoppable scent beads going into your washing machine and giving your clothes freshness that lasts all day long. There it is again. It's like music to your ears, or more like music to your nose. That freshness is irresistible. Let's get a Downy Unstoppables bottle shake. And now a sniff solo. Nice. Get 6 times longer lasting freshness plus odor protection with Downy Unstoppables in wash scent beads.
Sorry, but we actually have a wait list for our Monstera.
Shaw's greenhouse is really bringing in the green.
We can't keep snake plants in stock.
She needs a construction manager to build on her roots and grow.
We could add a whole section for ferns. Here we'd have dahlias, dahlias, and more dahlias.
Indeed can help her hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. You can schedule and conduct virtual interviews all from your employer dashboard. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
Substance use disorder and addiction is so isolating. And so as a Black woman in recovery, hope must be loud. It grows louder when you ask for help and you're vulnerable. It is the thread that lets you know that no matter what happens, you will be okay.
When we learn the power of hope, recovery is possible. Find out how at startwithhope.com. Brought to you by the National Council for Mental Wellbeing. Shatterproof.
All right, Rashad Frazier Gaines and Fatima Gilliam are joining me for this hour as we try to make sense of today's breaking and trending news. And it has been a busy news day. Fatima, let's start with Donald Trump. Why does the media cover Trump when he tells us he's going to testify? He's, excited to testify. He can't wait to testify because he's just going to tell the truth. We know Donald Trump is not taking the witness stand, particularly not in a criminal trial where he will be inevitably impeached and probably perjure himself. But yet again, he made those false claims that he was going to take the witness stand in this criminal case that's pending in the Manhattan courts. And today his team rested after only calling 2 witnesses, and Donald Trump wasn't one of the 2.
Well, I mean, to be honest, I knew out the gates, most people knew out the gates, most lawyers knew out the gates that Donald Trump was not going to testify because only a fool would testify. Because to be frank about it, most people like myself think he's guilty. He's guilty of this charge. He's guilty of the 90 plus other charges against him. And so if he testifies, not only would he perjure himself because he'd probably lie, or he would just get trapped in the truth and therefore would be found guilty. So, that's why he didn't testify. But the thing that I find perpetually mind-blowing is how much he is covered nonstop, incessantly on the media. It's like I can't escape constant loop on like MSNBC, CNN. It's just incessant. And it's a lot of free coverage for him. I feel like they're repeating the mistakes from 2015, 2016, where they gave him endless airtime. And he's just propped up. And frankly, they don't think about the fact that we are fatigued by this endless coverage. Like, I want to see other stories on the news. I want to hear what's going on in the Congo, right? Like at the Morehouse College commencement address where Biden spoke, there was a professor that held up the Congolese flag behind him. I want to hear the stories behind that. I want to hear a whole bunch of other stories, or Haiti, right? Or things that are happening in other parts of the world, or even more about what's happening in Gaza or in, the Olympics is coming up. I mean, we can even go for a bubblegum story, but you know what I mean? But they're not covering these stories. And they think that people want to continue to hear this over and over again, but we don't. And a lot of this stuff, you don't have to be clairvoyant to know he wasn't going to testify. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, I want to see some more stories about Simone Biles because she's looking fabulous.
Yeah.
She's so good. I saw her just like
need to
a
see
brief
her.
moment on Sunday, and she's looking great. And yeah, that you've got to catch those stories when you can because they're not going to last very long. They don't get much traction in the news. And Rashad, so Fatima says we don't want to see those, but I think it is because of the train wreck nature, the reality TV nature of Donald Trump and the outrageous statements that he makes that he knows will get him the media attention that he's gotten. And yes, the networks almost, they basically apologized to us after he got elected in 2016 and said they weren't going to repeat the same mistake in terms of all this free media coverage that he gets. But yet here we are again. It may be even more intense. Someone should probably track how many hours, he's covered. And it has to be as much, or if not even more intense than before. So what is it about covering Trump that is driving the ratings up of these stations? Because otherwise they wouldn't do it if it wasn't driving up the ratings.
At the new mix. The new mix includes the social media analytics and the hits on all of the apps and the hits on the all of the different platforms. So when you add all of that together, like I think Trump is probably the most shared topic and the most trending person. If we go back since 2016 and look at it, he's like in the top of all of the analytics. If you're someone who doesn't have a high profile and you want to get your stuff out there, I've seen videos where they've made Trump the still for the video, but the video itself actually has nothing to do with Donald Trump or politics as a whole, right? So, and every time I'm on the show and I'm grateful for the opportunity, and I blame the media, the corporate media, the large scale media for this. Everyone always pushes back, and it's like, no, we have to own that we are a part of the problem. On the flip side, as a member of society, we keep watching it, we keep sharing it, we keep indulging. It takes over dinner, it takes over lunch meetings, it takes over business meetings, and it's like we're obsessed with him, and we're giving him what he wants, and he loves it. Whether you're talking good or talking bad, he doesn't care as long as you're talking about it.
Yeah, you're right about that. So people are using him as a way to get, it's like clickbait. Like they see Donald Trump and they know he has such a loyal and, humongous following that people are going to automatically, as you said, just share it because it has his image or his name attached to it. But, there's some really serious issues that are not being talked about, whether it's Gaza or Haiti or some of those other topics that Fatima brought up. And it really causes us, folks who want to be in the know and want to know news beyond Donald Trump, to have to really dig sometimes. When I wake up at 4 or 5 in the morning and start looking at my news feed, sometimes there are 7, 8 stories, if not more, on Trump. And you have to go to different news sites other than your kind of traditional New York Times, Washington Post, NBC to find those other stories because they are so Trump intensive. And they would cause you to think that Donald Trump is the only thing happening in the world. And he is not. There's lots of other really important things that are happening, like these primaries. There are primaries today, Fatima, some pretty significant ones, like Georgia. Fani Willis was on Rachel Maddow last night talking about, I think it's one of the first interviews she's done since that hearing was held to try to disqualify her. She has a Democratic challenger in this primary. And then the Republican, I think she said, that's running against her is barely out of law school for years, has never practiced criminal law, has no trial experience, but yet is getting major funding from national GOP organizations. So, what's happening to Fani Willis is a story I'm interested in.
It's a story I'm interested in too. And just to say quickly about Trump, when I look at my phone and have all of these articles pop up and I see Trump in the headlines, I just delete them. I just swipe, get rid of it because I'm tired of it. And I find that I have to routinely dig and dig and dig to find stories from other sources so I can hear something new. But with Fani Willis, I really hope that she wins tonight. I think it's going to be tough because of her unforced error. But I want her to be able to be in a position to continue forth with that case. I think it is a critical, pivotal case in Georgia that's very different from the federal cases and some of these other cases against Donald Trump, because that case, if he's convicted, he can't be pardoned by the president. It's a game changer. And so I really want her to stay in her position because I feel like I believe that Trump needs to go to prison. I don't know what they're going to do with the Secret Service, but he needs to be there. And maybe if it's solitary, whatever, then he could feel what it's like to be in solitary confinement as we put multiple, countless people in this country in solitary confinement, and it impacts their mental health. What it does to Donald Trump, I don't care.
Yeah. Can you imagine Trump without his phone, without his, Truth Social, without being able to post on social media? That would probably drive him crazy. But speaking about Black prosecutors, female Black prosecutors, Marilyn Mosby, Rashad, there is a petition that is, being circulated as we speak, and a campaign being led by Derek Johnson and the NAACP, the National NAACP office, to get Marilyn Mosby pardoned. Obviously, the pardon can't happen until she's sentenced. She's going to be sentenced later this month, and she's facing some pretty significant jail time for charges that people believe are pretty, that she was targeted. The charges are pretty non-meritorious, but that she stood up against the police after Freddie Gray was killed and made statements against Trump, and a Trump-appointed prosecutor came after her. What do you make of this effort, and do you see on social media it having widespread support?
I'm a fan of Miss Mosby. I'm a fan of any person who puts their livelihood and their career and their body on the line defending other people. And so I'm a fan. I will say this, and I'm prepared for y'all bullies in the comments. It is incumbent upon us, those of us who wear capes, whether our cape is a briefcase or it's a Bible or it's a stethoscope, it's a lesson plan book, whatever it is that we're out here doing this work, it is incumbent upon us to not forget that we are Black and this is America and they are watching us. You don't get to call out.
Hold that thought for me, Rashad. Hold that thought, because I've got to get you to finish that point. And of course, I got to get Fatima with her cape on to weigh in on this. Stay with us, KBLA Talk 1580, when we come forward.
More of Areva Martin in real time when we come forward.
I'm Tyreek Wynn. Here's the latest on the Black Information Network. The Minnesota Republican Party is endorsing a former NBA player who wants to become a U.S. Senator. Royce White, who's Black, won the party's endorsement at the state convention in St. Paul over the weekend. White received 67% of the votes from delegates, winning on the first ballot. The Maryland-based Caucus of African American Leaders have passed a resolution asking officials to rename the Frederick C. Malkus Jr. Bridge in Cambridge because it resisted desegregation in Maryland in the 1960s and 70s. On Monday night, a delegation from the group called Cambridge City Council to introduce a resolution to rename the bridge after late civil rights activist Gloria Richardson. A number of states are holding primary elections today, including Georgia, where Fulton County DA Fonnie Willis is on the ballot. Willis, who is handling the election interference case for former President Trump, faces challenger Christian Wise Smith, who says he'll continue the Trump prosecution if he wins. That's the latest. I'm Tyreek Wynn on your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network.
Your drive through Santa Monica is now heavy over an hour on the 10 East between Lincoln Boulevard and the 5101 interchange. Drive carefully in San Dimas on the 210 East before San Dimas Avenue, as an accident is blocking the right lane with heavy delays coming from Lone Hill Avenue. Back in Elysian Park, watch for a stall in the center divide of the 5 North before Highway 110, causing stop traffic under 10 minutes from the 10. Also in Inglewood's 405 South before Century Boulevard, a stall is currently blocking the right lane with over 35 minutes running heavy from Wilshire Boulevard. And East LA, 2 left lanes have been blocked with an accident on the 5 North at Dittman Avenue, Indiana Street interchange, and heavy traffic up to 15-20 minutes is ahead from Eastern Avenue.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. Shopping for new blinds? At Blindster, we offer over 50 different blinds, shades, and shutters at low prices, custom made for your windows, and shipping is free. Shop at home and order 10 free samples of any product before you buy. Blindster.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The LA Sparks are back in action tonight against the Washington Mystics. 7 p.m. tip-off at the Pyramid at Long Beach State. The Sparks are looking for their first win in the WNBA season after after an 0-2 start. Next game for the Sparks is Friday night at Crypto.com against Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever. Congratulations to New Orleans Pelicans guard C.J. McCollum. McCollum was named the winner of the NBA's Walter Kennedy Citizenship Award. McCollum started a $1.1 million scholarship program that provides Pell Grants to help qualifying high school seniors in New Orleans pay for college. Students don't have to pay back whatever amount of money they get from a Pell Grant. Florida A&M and Texas Southern are the top 2 seeds in the SWAC baseball tournament. The HBCU event begins Wednesday in Birmingham, Alabama. The SWAC championship game is Sunday. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Yeah, y'all, come on. Pick up the drum.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we fight the power every day.
Yeah, gotta give us what we want. Gotta give us what we need. Hey.
I listen to KBLA and I love the commercials. I know what the commercials mean. I also, if I'm looking and trying to figure something out, I need something to talk to me that might hit me. And it happens on TV because, you know, every time they show a sporting event, they got the pharmaceutical companies back to back to back telling people how to fix the sickness on the same stuff that they sell them. So we get it.
Yep, we get it too, Chuck D. And that's why at KBLA Talk 1580, we don't black down.
Drop it. Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be. Fight the power. Fight the power.
You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580, where climate is king. Climate is king.
We asked seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up. Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month.
If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
Every day, millions face challenges that go unseen. Mental health issues affect not just individuals, but the relationships that matter most to them. Over 80% of those suffering with mental health conditions acknowledge the strain on their families. Parents grappling with depression or anxiety find even simple tasks overwhelming. At work, challenges can lead to communication breakdowns, jeopardizing careers and professional relationships. For those caring for loved ones, burnout is a stark reality. The weight of caregiving responsibilities can feel insurmountable. Children, too, feel this impact, often taking on more at home, sacrificing schoolwork and time with friends. But there's hope. Seeking support can change lives. This Mental Health Awareness Month, let's heal the relationships that matter most to us. It's okay to pray and get help. Visit normalizehelp.org for more information and resources.
We are back, and Rashad Frazier Gaines and Fatima Gilliam are joining me in this hour as we are breaking down today's trending news. And in hour two, Black women respond and react to that horrifying video of Sean Combs dragging and assaulting and beating and kicking Cassie Ventura in that hotel in Los Angeles in 2016. I'm going to be breaking down what happens to domestic violence victims and how come Sean Diddy Combs is not facing criminal charges, or might he be? So make sure you stick around for hour two. All right, Rashad and Fatima, we're talking about Marilyn Mosby, and she is literally set to be sentenced this Thursday on May 23rd. She was charged and convicted on 2 separate counts of perjury and mortgage fraud months ago. She claims that the charges were politically and racially motivated, and now she's mounted this national campaign for a presidential pardon, and lots of prominent African-American civil rights leaders, including Bernice King, have signed a petition trying to urge Joe Biden to pardon her. Biden has pardoned about 24 people since he's been in office. The prosecutors in the case, even though she faces up to 40 years, are asking the judge for a sentence of 20 months. Mosby is asking that she not be given any time, that she be allowed probation because she is a mom, and says that going to jail obviously would have a really negative impact on her children. Prosecutors also, Fatima, have filed a motion with the court saying that she being Mosby, have not accepted any responsibility. They say that she's going around undermining the judicial process. They say she's displayed no remorse. She has no regrets for her actions, and she's consistently worked to undermine public faith in the justice system for her own benefit. Now, in response, her legal team says, look, she has every right to maintain her innocence indefinitely. What do you make of now what's becoming kind of a war of words between the prosecuting attorney, who wants to send a message to the judge that she shouldn't be given leniency, and her attorneys who are saying, look, everything's on the line now. We might as well go for broke and try to get as much public attention on this case as possible.
Well, I mean, I agree. She's entitled to maintain her innocence, even with conviction, even if she's sent to prison. She doesn't have to comply in a way that they feel that she should comply, if part of what she's also saying is that she's innocent and that she was targeted. I mean, I don't know enough about the facts of this case to opine on it too much, but what I will say is we have a whole bunch of cops out there who get less time for murder. And this is a white collar crime, right? So, or at least she's charged and convicted of a white collar crime. And I think there are some strong arguments in terms of her being a mother. You know, there are plenty of people sitting at home that have engaged in worse criminal activity, if she is in fact guilty of it, who are sitting at home with ankle bracelets, right? And so I think there's some strong arguments to be made. And if she does get a stronger sentence, you know, moving aside whether or not she's been targeted because she's a person of color, but in terms of sentencing, right? Sentencing is not necessarily handed down fairly based on color. And so if she gets a stronger sentence, right, and she's sent to prison for a longer period of time, I mean, arguably we could say that the levying of that sentence has racial undertones to it. So, I mean, maybe she deserves to be at home with an ankle bracelet with all the other white collar criminals.
So, Rashad, right before break, you were raising a point about the responsibility that Black folks with capes have when they, you know, take on these jobs and get these positions of prominence. Next month will mark 10 years since Marilyn Mosby became the youngest person in the United States to be elected to lead a prosecutor's office. And on Thursday, as I said, May 23rd, she'll find out if she's going to spend some time and what amount of time in jail. So Fatima just said, look, there are cops out there that kill people that don't get any time, or a lot less time than the time being recommended in this case. But you're saying, well, that may be true, but Black folks know this is still America. So I sense you feel some empathy for her, but yet you're also thinking we need to learn some lesson from this.
Look, I was born and raised in Aiken, South Carolina. Y'all ain't never heard of it, okay? It's right, you're about 20 minutes from Augusta, Georgia. The hospital that I was born at is literally less than 10 minutes from the Augusta National Golf Club, okay? So I know racism. I know the world that we live in. I'm very aware of the world that we live in. And then I also know that education is an equalizer, right? I also know that voting is an equalizer. And I also know what people will do and have done to make sure that I didn't have access to education or access to the ballot box, right? We cannot pretend when we come out of poverty that we're no longer Black. We cannot pretend because we have abbreviations before or after our names that we're no longer Black. We cannot pretend that President Barack Obama, being the president of the United States, gave a pass to all of us. We can't pretend because we're in Jack and Jill and the Lynx and then the Boulay and all of these other amazing, great organizations, and our kids are gonna have access and our kids are gonna be able to do this, and we're gonna leave wealth, and we're gonna You know, whatever the case, whatever the things are that we do to separate ourselves from other Black people in America and in the world. And then when these things happen, all of a sudden we're Black and we need the Black people to rally around us. Now, I'm not throwing that off on Maryland, but there seems to be a trend when Black people who don't want to be Black, things happen to them, then all of a sudden, now the Black community has to come rally around them. And I'm not accusing Marilyn Mosby of this at all. Like, she literally put her life on the line for Black people in Baltimore.
Okay, I hear what you're saying, though.
And if we need to save anybody, we need to save her. But we also have to be mindful of the world that we live in when we're making moves. You know that they're watching you. Handle your business accordingly.
All right. Fatima, Rashad said, look, Black people, you get out of poverty, you get an education, you get a job, you get a position of power. That comes with a tremendous amount of responsibility and an acknowledgement that you live in a world where you're not going to be treated the same, not going to be given the breaks that your white counterparts are given, and therefore you need to handle, as he said, your business and be above reproach. What do you say to that?
I mean, I think there's a lot of truth in what Rashad said, right? I mean, the reality is there are more eyes on us as Black people, as people of color, right? So whether you're Fonnie Willis or you're, Marilyn Mosby or Barack Obama or someone else, there are always going to be more eyes, right? The criticism is going to be higher. The scrutiny is going to be elevated. The punishment is going to be significantly harsher. You're going to be punished even if you're not even doing anything wrong, maybe being punished because you're adjacent to a troublesome white person, right? So this is just the way of the world. And it's unfortunate that we have to not just be the talented 10th, that we have to be better than, but we have to always, dot our I's and cross our T's and make sure there's very little for people to come first, especially when you're challenging the establishment, right? Especially when you're coming for laws, when you're coming for policy, when you're coming for powerful people, which is unfortunate. And then for people who aren't engaged in, or being charged with criminal activity, but when people do raise their hand to be courageous, then it's unfortunate when they don't get the adequate support they need from their own community when they need that help.
And
and some breaking news happened while we've been having this conversation. And that's that Fonnie Willis did win her primary in Georgia. So she will go on to face a Republican challenger. And given the county that she won in, the county in Georgia where Atlanta is, Fonnie Willis will remain the district attorney in Fulton County, Georgia. So kudos to you, Fonnie. I'm going to continue this conversation when we come forward because I have a little different take than both of you on what it means when you wear your cape as a Black person. We had a lot to talk about. Stay with us. KBLA Talk 1580.
City of Los Beware of scammers. Notifications about your application will only come from the City of LA in emails ending in lacity.org. Protect yourself. Contact the LA Housing Department by email at lahd.erap@lacity.org or call 866-557-7368 to check communications you receive about the program. You can also verify your application status at housing.lacity.org. That's housing.lacity.org.
When you're young, life is full of choices. Don't let opioids like highly addictive and deadly fentanyl take away your life with just one wrong pill. Addiction is a disease that can affect anyone at any age. But there is a choice to get help for this disease. Find medically proven treatment options, including virtual, at choosemat.org.
Tips to help improve your credit score in 2024. Establishing credit is an important key to achieving financial health, but building a credit history from scratch can feel challenging since you need credit to build credit. First, what does it mean to build credit? All consumers have a score between 300 and 850. You want your score to be as high as possible as lenders look at your credit score to make loan and credit decisions. A good credit score shows you have a track record of borrowing money responsibly. Remember, it's never too late to build or rebuild your credit. This segment is sponsored by JP Morgan Chase & Company.
The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, Black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's cal-cruise.
All right, we are back with Rashad Frazier Gaines and Fatima Gilliam. She's the author of Race Rules, What Your Black Friend Won't Tell You. And we're talking about the responsibility that comes when you are perhaps the only or the first person to do something as an African American, and how folks look up to you and what they expect from you, and just the added responsibility. And we're talking about Fonnie Willis, talking about Marilyn Mosby. And by the way, Fonnie Willis won 90% to 10% of the votes in Fulton County to continue to be the district attorney for that county. And it's about 37% of the votes have been counted, but clearly she will face a Republican challenger, and any efforts by the Dems to cause her not to be in that seat have failed miserably. Fulton County, Georgia loves Fonnie Willis. And she said that as much last night. She said, look, people have been coming for her with death threats, and ever since she has taken on these high-profile cases, Trump included, but Black folks have been rooting for her. And I think people, Rashad and Fatima, some people are a little, disturbed by the affair that she had with Nathan Wade, the special counsel that she brought on her team to prosecute Trump. But also, people like me and some of my friends, we're tired of having to wear that added responsibility. And we don't want to pass that on to the next generation. And I tell my kids, obviously, be aware of what you are doing, but don't take on the added burden of the entire race, because that is exhausting. It's stressful, and it can cause lots of mental health issues and all kinds of other, physiological issues for kids and adults, obviously, when you see yourself as needing to carry the race. And I just think it's time for all of us to acknowledge and accept that we can be normal. Fonnie Willis can have an affair. White folks have affairs with people in their offices all the time. And yes, there are double standards and we are judged differently, but we're going to always be judged differently if we don't start to try to break some of those stereotypes and break some of those expectations, unreasonable, unrealistic expectations that people put on us as African Americans. And that kind of leads me to, I don't want to run out of time. I do want to ask you, Fatima, about this Southwest lawsuit. Mr. Bloom, who feels like it's his obligation to the world to police everything that is of benefit to minorities. So now he's suing Southwest because they provide free airline tickets to Latino undergraduate and graduate students. He's saying that that's a violation of federal civil rights laws. And he says you can't give Latinos free airline tickets unless you're going to give it to everyone. What do you make of Edward Bloom in this lawsuit against Southwest?
Well, first, let me just say, I believe that Ed Blum is a white supremacist. You have to start asking, why is he so focused on everything related to race, right? And it's because he's a white supremacist. And when I think about Ed Blum, I'm always thinking of this, one of my favorite quotes by Nesreen Malik, I think is how you say her name. And she says, A white identity is a trust fund, and its currency is grievance that is stolen from others. And that is what Blum is engaged in all the time, right? So first he came for affirmative action in college admissions, and he won that. He's come for the Fearless Fund, for the VC group trying to give funding to Black female entrepreneurs. He has sent nasty letters and threats to law firms that want to have their diversity programs. I mean, what it's led to is this colossal rollback, right? So it's not just the attack on DEI. Even when there isn't even an attack coming for a specific organization, they're opening their programs up to everybody, right? Well, then why even have a program, right? It's not even really an affirmative action diversity program anymore if it's for everyone. But I mean, it just shows not just the pettiness of these lawsuits, but the depths to which he will go when he's coming for something like free airfare so that people can go to graduate school, that can get on a plane and go to college, right? He wants to put up every impediment and blockage to any form of Black and brown progress. And he will do it if he can, even using Asian Americans as props that he doesn't care about anyway, to come for other people of color so he can divide and conquer, right? So I think that he is a threat to people of color. And when you come for these types of policies, he's coming for Black people. He's a threat to Black people. And I wish he would just go away.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like he's going to do that anytime soon, because he has had some success with a very conservative Supreme Court. So obviously his success with affirmative action in terms of college admissions empowered him. And right now that Freedom Fund case is with the 11th Circuit. I know folks who were at the oral argument and said that 11th Circuit court was very, very hostile to the Black women who lead that venture fund. So again, if he has success with that case, no telling what he's going to come forward next. But before I let you guys go, Rashad, I want to ask you about Kerry Kennedy. She is leading this heart-wrenching campaign against her brother's White House bid, her brother being Robert F. Kennedy Jr. We know the Kennedys went to the White House with Joe Biden to say they stood with him. They've been trying to encourage their brother to step down. But she now Kerry in particular, has become the face of the anti-Kennedy movement. What do you make of that? I mean, it's kind of tough to have most of your family, it's not his entire family, but to have a lot of your family out campaigning against you and saying some pretty bad things about you.
I think Chris Rock said it best. Our parents raised us not to fight in front of white people. I don't know what I'm watching here, right? Like, am I watching folks who really love America fight for the soul of America? Or am I watching a very wealthy, historic, prominent family air their dirty laundry out in front of the world? I don't know what I'm watching. But what I do know is that I'm Black and we got other things in our community that we got to focus on. And James Baldwin said it best: to be a Negro and relatively conscious in this world, in America, is to be in a constant state of rage in one's work. And you're right, Miss Martin and Miss Fatima, Miss Gillum, it is exhausting. And we don't have to carry the burdens of the entire race on us. But guess what? Freedom ain't free. We didn't get here.
No, it's not free. It's not free.
It got brand new. Freedom ain't free. And we have to be mindful of that. You ain't got to be perfect, but you can't be out here doing dumb stuff when you know they watching you.
Cardi Miss Kerry Kennedy. No, I hear you, and I understand that. I'm just hoping that we can get to a point where our kids get to just be. If they want to be,
just exist.
What we would consider lazy bums. They just get to be.
Yeah, just breathe. Just
real quickly.
Oh yeah, the one thing that I wanted to add in terms of like taking on the burden, and I hear your point, Rashad, but I also think we're in a time where, especially with the attack on DEI, that the stakes are too high. And I think we're in a phase where we cannot engage in apathy. Everybody, big, small, no power, little power, everyone has some degree of power, need to step up. And one thing that I would really love to see happen as a counteroffensive to the attack on DEI, I wanted to bring it back to that for a quick second, is we need to get on offense. We are too much on defense. And one thing that I would like to see, yes, there are legal challenges that need to happen, but that is the slow game because it takes forever for cases to make it through the court. And so what I would like to see is boycotting the South. I'm just going to keep it real. I would love for there to be no, people not having concerts, attending concerts, sporting events, conferences, conventions in these states like Arkansas, Florida, Texas, Alabama, South Carolina, that are advancing these, and then it's sort of spreading like a cancer across the country. And I would love to see people collectively, and you may not like this,
Well, hold on a second, Fatima. Real quickly, Rashad, the NAACP, Derek Johnson, called for there to be some kind of travel advisory against going to Florida. Didn't seem to get a lot of traction. Why not?
So I don't think it got traction because I don't think the NAACP holds the weight that it did 60, 70 years ago. And, Derek and the team over there can counter that, and they'll say they're the biggest social justice organization and blah, 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 blah. Well, you can say that. The facts are the facts. I believe they also called a ban from students playing or going to D1 schools and playing sports in Florida. And I'm not seeing a response to that either. We got a lot of stuff we got to figure out.
Yes, and freedom ain't free. Thank you, Mr. Rashad. Thank you, Fatima. Always a pleasure to be in conversation with both of you. I'm a lot smarter as a result of spending this hour with you, but we are out of time. When we come forward, we're going to be talking about that horrific video where we watch Sean P. Diddy Combs beat the crap out of Cassie Ventura. Make sure you stick around because we're going to be talking about domestic violence and how to save a life right here on KBLA Talk 1580. Stay with us. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Great conversation.